Rock Me Mama.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Welcome
ladies.
to Rock Me Mama. I'm Amy.
And I'm Macy.
And we're here, episode 3.
We're talking birth stories today.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I'm excited.
This is what actually the original idea of this podcast was, to share birth stories,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and eventually our plan is still to interview our friends and some of you about your birth stories, because I think once you're a mom, there's nothing more interesting than hearing someone's gory birth story, because they're all gory.
They're all different too.
Yeah. And they're all
Nobody's the
beautiful
same.
and gory at the same time.
Yeah. The good, the bad, the gory.
The gory.
I guess the good, the bad, the ugly does apply here as well.
Yeah,
but
it does.
Yeah.
And we both had totally different birth stories, like in every single way, like most things in our life. Very different, yet similar.
Yeah.
I think you should go first, because let's let them down slowly. Let's bring them up, only to let them down.
Oh my God, your story is still great. Every birth
Is it
story
though?
is. Every birth story is great.
It ended up with a beautiful, perfect, amazing little nugget baby. But I would say my birth story was horrifying.
You go.
You think?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Because
maybe we leave them on a high note.
yeah, sure.
We start them. Yeah. Okay, so my birth story. So let me
you need a
start.
spotlight. You just go.
Well, it all
birth
happened
story.
one night. No, let me start by just saying, my biggest mistake about my birth story is that I thought that I would have a good birth story. And my brothers actually reminded me of this later. They were like, Aim, everything in your life goes things just go, if it's going to go crazy and if it's going to go not the way you anticipate, that's how my life has gone. And not in a woe is me way, not in a, oh, I feel so bad for myself, but in a way where it's just nothing ever goes how I plan, ever in my life.
Well, and you're a planner.
And I'm a planner. So my first mistake was thinking that I would have some beautiful natural birth. And I had my mother, my Jewish mother, in my ear saying, I could have had you all in a field. She literally was saying that over and over. She's like, I could have had you in a field. It was so natural. It was so just, my body just did it. And I'm listening to this over and over. And I'm like, okay, so I'm built for this.
Right. This is going to be how
This
it
is
for
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because my mom and I are so similar. But my mom was 26 and I was 38 and a half when I had Farrah. So it's a different ball game.
Also, your body is different.
And your body's different. And I'm part my dad.
Exactly.
Maybe my dad would have had a bad birth story. But so I kept having this mantra. And my mom also had us all a couple weeks early. So LOL. So I was so pregnant for what felt like so long, because it was COVID and I was alone. And we talked about this already, but every day was a year. And I was fucking humongous. And we were having just sex and eating hot sauce and doing all the things to try to induce labor. I lost my mucus plug, I think 3 or 4 weeks before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before I ended up getting induced. So my whole entire pregnancy, in my head, I was saying to myself, anything is better than being induced and having a C-section. And I know that that's what pretty much most women think, right? You think?
I think
pretty
there are
much
also
most
a lot of
women
that voluntarily have a C-section.
Get C-sections, yes. Not me. I was not one of those women. I thought to myself, if I can have a vaginal birth, whatever it takes, I think that's what I want. Because I knew women that had C-sections, and I knew women that had been induced, and I knew how traumatic it had been for them. I mean, two of my sister-in-laws both were induced and both had emergency C-sections.
Oh, wow.
Or no. Both were induced. One of them had an emergency C-section. One of them almost did, and then at the last minute had a vaginal birth. But it was very traumatic, and she tore and the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I just heard those stories, and I was like, this is the opposite of what I want for myself. like, I really want to just have this baby. Like in the movies, I wanted like the head to come out. And my biggest fear was like, I was going to poop, you know, like I didn't think, did you, oh yeah, you pooped. And I remember like when you fill out these like questionnaire things at the doctors of, you know, they give you the after you have the baby, they give you the postpartum stuff to check if you're okay. But before, they also give you like, what's your biggest fear and all this stuff. And I remember thinking like, my biggest fear is pooping. And pooping would have been a dream compared to how it went for me. So I had gone to the doctor a few times at about 39 and a half weeks, 40 weeks. And they were giving me the ultrasounds that they give you when you're already like kind of past due. And in the ultrasound, the last one that they gave me a picture of, her face is like totally smushed against what I think is my pelvis.
Yeah.
And I obviously didn't have the forethought to like know what that meant.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking she was stuck behind my pelvis.
Yeah.
But my doctor really wasn't very attentive. She wasn't very caring. Every time I would express kind of feelings of, hey, like I'm older and I feel like induction and C-section is kind of how it goes with people my age if they induce. I really feel like she brushed me off, and I felt very much like I didn't have that support.
Yeah.
I didn't have a doula or a midwife or any of that, because it's just not in my personality to do like that, any of that like hippie shit. I respect it, but I just didn't. I was like, whatever. I'll take the drugs. I'll have the baby. And it just didn't. I remember I thought my water broke 2 different times, but I was just peeing myself, but I had no control. So I would just like shoot pee, like literally.
Yeah.
I would be standing there and it would be like, shh.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's like my water breaking, obviously. So we went to the hospital twice.
Because you peed.
Because and so they have to test you. They have to test the
Think I
fluid.
knew that.
Yeah, they have to test the fluid, because if it's amniotic fluid, then you need to stay and they need to induce labor, because then the germs stuff can get in and infect the baby. So twice we went to the hospital for false alarms, and I sat there, and they were, and morgue, like we talked about this because they were saying to me, are you feeling those contractions? Are you feeling those contractions? And I was like, no.
And in your head, were like, I'm so
and I was
strong.
Like, I am gonna have this baby. This baby's gonna fly out of my pussy.
I can have
I'm
this baby in a field.
Yeah, I'm gonna have this baby in a field. So I'm like, I'm not even feeling these contractions. I am so tough.
That's what I would have thought.
Right. So then they're like, oh, psych, we're gonna send you home because you're definitely not having this baby.
A little.
Yeah, they're like, you peed. So both times, $1,000 a time. We got the checks later, or we got the bills later for it, and we were like, oh, great, that's the time you peed. So anyway, finally, the doctor was like, okay, you're coming up on 41 weeks. We're going to have to induce. And I was like, God damn it. Like, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to have a C-section, but I'm going to try so hard not to. I'm going to really try to like, there's really nothing you can't really control it, I guess. But I was hell-bent on not having a C-section. So I go in and I made a playlist of like Wilco and some of my favorite artists. And we were like lighting candles and like putting music on. And at first they gave me the pill that goes in your vagina. Did you get that?
My mic keeps falling. I mean, it's fine.
Just hold it, honey.
I just don't want it to make noise. Yes, it is.
It's like they put one in you. Yeah.
It's the
and it loosens up your cervix.
Ripening pill is what that's how it was described to me.
Okay,
it
so
ripens your cervix.
I had that.
Yeah. And
that didn't do much. And we were there for hours and hours, and then it's almost like I'm trying to like relive this. Like, so they put that in, it didn't do much. Then they did Pitocin. And that's when shit fucking went down. They did Pitocin, and I went from, not a lot of centimeters to like 6.
Yeah. Which is like in how much time?
quickly, and my contractions were gnarly. Like it felt like I was being burnt. Like my Pitocin. Did you do Pitocin? Oh, you didn't do any drugs. You hippie bitch. I felt like I can't even explain the pain. It was agonizing pain. So I asked for the epidural. They gave me an epidural. It was like, oh my God, thank God. It was so.
How immediate was that?
So you lean. You like have to be very still during the contractions because the epidural, they need to be very precise as to where they put it or they can hurt you.
Yeah, I mean, it's in your spine,
and
right?
it's a big ass needle. I wouldn't even look. I was like, I don't even want to fucking see that shit. But you're in so much pain that you don't care. You're like, just do it. Put it in. Put the fucking needle in. And they do it, and then you lose feeling. Like you can't feel your legs or anything from your waist down. Like it's just. So then I'm like this humongous cow, and I can't feel my lower extremities. So I'm like, I'm probably peeing and pooping. Like I literally don't know.
How like from where did you lose feeling?
Like from where they put it. So like your butt down.
Okay. I mean, this is
yeah.
It's
you lose
interesting
feeling from like you're here like down, and you really can't feel anything. And so after they gave me the Pitocin, the doctor came in, and this is like 12 hours later. Like I've been there for so long, and the doctor came in, and she's like, I'm going to break your water. And my husband says that she took a chopstick and broke my water.
That's my favorite. I've heard him say that so many times, and
he said she literally took a chopstick and she was like, "Doop," and I don't remember that. I remember her breaking it, but she broke it during like pretty much the same time as the Pitocin. Broke my water, contractions crazy, epidural, the water is everywhere, and then everything gets really real.
Yeah.
Then
because how far you labored until
I labored until I was 9 centimeters.
Yeah.
So during that time, the epidural or the Pitocin gave me a reaction where my entire body shook, vibrated like this for literally like 10 hours to where Nick was like very scared and I was scared and like I couldn't stop shaking profusely. And then they told me I was at 9 centimeters, but we kept losing her heartbeat and they kept flipping me over. So they kept taking my body and flipping me over, but I had no feeling in my body. Ugh. So it was so like, it was so vulnerable to be like naked from the waist down, being flipped over over and over, like in front of anyone.
Well, and just not feeling that.
Well, you're not feeling it. And you're also so scared because they can't find your baby's heart.
Right.
So that happened. It happened, I think, 3 times. And they said, and I was yelling. I was like, I want a C-section. If she's going to die, I don't want to fucking wait it out. Yeah. Because they kept being like, oh, we got it back. We got it back. And I was like, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do this again. And they were like, you're so close. You're 9 centimeters. It's so close, blah, blah, blah. And then the doctor came in and she said, she's stuck behind the pelvis. We're doing a C-section right now. And then everybody fucking, it's like someone says the word and then everybody gets really, you got to do it right then, because the baby is like in distress.
Yeah.
And
which does not calm you down.
I was hysterically crying. So then they wheel me into this room and everybody scrubs up. And my husband, Nick, was not in the room yet because they had to have him clean up and scrub up. And then they brought me into this room with all these lights. And this woman came who was super nice. She was the nicest person I had met thus far. And she was like, I'm going to numb you so that you don't feel any of this. And she was like, you tell me when you can't feel certain things. And I told her and she numbed me to where, because before you could feel people moving you around. Yeah. But you can't feel you can feel the contractions, but you could feel the movement. Once she was done, you can't feel anything, which is fucked up. But when you're about to get cut open.
Yeah, you want to feel that way or not feel.
And your organs are about to be out of your body. Like you don't want that.
Right.
So they did that and I was crying. And it's also like the brightest lights on you. Everything is so bright and you're naked and you're like thinking baby's gonna die. Yeah. And I remember Nick came in, scrubbed up, and he sat by me, and then there was a curtain so I couldn't see. And I always say, like, I can't believe he didn't look. Like, he didn't want to look. But I would have looked. I would have wanted to see, but he didn't want to look. But so then I couldn't feel it, but you can see them like,
Oh, yeah.
see them like this.
Yeah.
And there's so many of them, and they're just
Yeah.
and Nick says he remembers the smell of burning. They burn your flesh, like they cut you open. This is fucking gory birth stories, y'all. Gory, okay? I'm not taking it.
I'm making.
I'm not taking it easy on anyone. So they cut you open, and you can feel. You can't feel it, but you can see them moving your body around in haste to get the baby out. And they took her. I remember they took her out, and she didn't cry, and so that's like a nightmare. You know, you're like,
terrifying.
oh, the baby died. The baby's dead. And then they did something. They put something in her mouth and whatever, and then she started crying. And my husband made a noise that like I have never heard anyone make. It was like a guttural cry to where he must have thought we were both gonna die. Like, I'm getting emotional, but he must have thought we were both gonna die because like the noise that he made, like he was so emotional. And they gave the baby to him. They gave her to him, and then they gave her to me, and it was just like amazing. She just like was so beautiful, but it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Well,
it was like the worst. It was like the worst day of my life and the best day of my life.
Right. And I think I'm glad. I don't want to say I'm glad you're crying because I
never cry.
I'm your friend. I'm not saying it that way, but I just think that there's so much reality in women having a traumatic birth story, and there needing to be time to heal from that because either it didn't go how they thought it would, or it was the scariest day of their life, or
it was the scariest day of my life.
Yeah.
And because you go through 9 months and you're like, am I going to not have a baby?
Yeah.
You know, like, am I going to like walk out of here without a baby?
Well, and it's so much raw emotion between you and your husband as well. And I think,
God, I hate crying in public. Fuck this.
Well, for those who are just listening, they can't see your beautiful tears.
True.
But there also will be tears in probably the majority of episodes. I'm surprised I'm not crying in my hormonal state right now watching you. But there's so many raw emotions between you and your husband. And I think seeing your husband scared is really scary as well. And I'm like thinking about my birth story, which I'll get to in a second. And there was a moment of looking over and seeing Chase scared, and that like, that's when like shit gets real
because
for you.
They don't ever express that. So when they do it, you're like, it's so real. Like, for Nick to cry the way he cried, I mean, the only other time I've seen him cry like that is when his dad died.
Yeah.
You know, like I've never seen him like that. And so it's just like was wild to feel that. And then the immense, like, she's perfect. She's okay. She's fine. She's breathing. She's crying.
So many emotions.
She's trying to find my boob. Yeah. You know, but like, it was so intense, and it took me, I mean, we'll talk about postpartum stuff in another episode, but I would say it took me almost a whole year to be able to even tell the story.
Yeah.
Even tell anyone how I gave birth, because I was so, like, I felt robbed of my experience.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it.
I felt like, why, of all the things that could go that way, why did this go like this for me? Yeah. Why didn't I have an experience that I could feel happy about? So I think that's why I get emotional, because like it was simultaneously the best and worst day of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I really, I know that there are tons of moms listening that are crying as well because they relate, and that's how their experience was. And
yeah,
I think it's almost tough to explain to women, like you saying it was the worst day of your life.
Sounds awful.
Right. But it was incredibly traumatic, and it wasn't what you expected. You thought that you probably were going to die at one point. You weren't sure if Farrah was going to make it.
And I didn't fucking care if I would died.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
I didn't care. I wanted her to be okay. And I just kept thinking, like, if I die, okay, it's fine. Yeah. But like, if she's like, please let her not be dead.
And it's just so much raw emotion. Yeah. And it's the first time that you feel that love that you didn't know you were capable of, and you feel that, and so feeling that like slip away maybe is like
so intense.
It's terrifying.
Yeah,
it's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it really is.
So I'm
crazy that women and then you just think about it gives you this like respect for women like that you've never had, that you just didn't ever understand that women do this crazy fucking thing and keep life on earth. You know?
Yeah, it's bad ass.
It's badass.
It's nothing short of
it's badass.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it's wild. You know, and then people, I mean, there's women that do it over and over, like C-sections, they do it over, and vaginal birth too. Like, in no way, shape, or form do I think that vaginal birth is an easy way out at all. I mean, birth is trauma.
Yeah.
It can be beautiful, it can be whatever, but it's trauma, no matter what.
That's the most intense thing your body can go through.
Yeah, and the fact that women just they do it over and over. I mean, I'm terrified to do it again. Yeah. Not that I'm not pregnant, but like even the thought of doing it again makes me extremely scared because I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, and I think that's so real. I really do.
I want the baby, I want the kid, but I don't want to go through that again. Right. You know, I get why famous people fucking pay other people to have their kids.
Yeah. Shout out Kim K.
I mean, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. It's just, it's the most raw. Is rawest a word?
No, probably not.
Okay. It's the most raw.
No, you would say the rawest, right?
Yeah.
It's the rawest thing. Is that a word?
Y'all know,
I don't fucking, who knows?
But it's the like most raw or the rawest form of emotions that I mean, it's emotions that you did not know that you were capable of having or had in you, and it's all of them at once.
So let's hear yours.
Sweet fairy girl.
Enough about me.
My story. So there are actually some similarities in ours that I forgot about because it's been a while since we've talked about our stories, but so for me, around week, I think 35, which is crazy that's where I am right now. I'm at 34 and a half weeks.
You're there.
I know.
You're there.
I'm feeling it.
You look amazing, but you're there.
Well, thank you. I'm there. We had, at that point you're going every 2 weeks.
Every week.
I should know.
I think after 35 you go every week.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have my next visit in 2 days, and after that it's every week. And I especially had to do that because E was measuring small really my entire pregnancy, but he dropped from the 13th percentile at week 34 to the 5th percentile at week 35, which if anything, if they're any number under 10, it's reason for concern, apparently. Which is terrifying to hear that your baby's small. Yeah. And my doctor, I have since switched doctors, but my doctor at the time handled it in a way that both Chase and I wish it had not been handled. Obviously, he needed to tell us the concerns, what could have happened and everything, but stillborn was thrown out. And just words like that. I mean, like, oh my God, like, how do you listen to that, even if it's a 1%, and go home thinking, okay, like, we're good.
Yeah, no, you can't sleep.
Right. And so 35 weeks, E was measuring very small according to numbers and charts and everything. And my doctor had mentioned, if he stays on this track, then we'll probably go for induction. So I had
What was the, theory behind that? Was that
that's another thing that Chase and I...
out?
That's another thing that Chase and I look back on and we're like, we have learned since then, you ask the questions. Yeah. You cannot ask enough questions. But your first time, though, you're in such fog of whatever it takes to get baby here.
You trust these people.
Right. Yeah. And you don't know, looking back, like, God, if I had just asked this, or, gosh, even gotten a second opinion. Yeah. Like, Chase and I both say now, we really, I mean, it would have felt crazy to switch doctors at 35 weeks, but... E ended up being an incredibly healthy, perfectly fine baby.
Yeah. I thought about switching doctors that late. Yeah. And then I just was too scared.
Well, and at that point you're like, I am done. Yeah. But looking back, I wish that we had. Yeah. Anyway, so my plan, really the whole pregnancy had been, it's 5 laugh saying plan because like you said, like you don't get to plan your birth. No. You don't get to plan your birth. But what I had wanted to happen was a natural birth. And I had a doula. We had this whole plan written out. It was going to be at a hospital. It wasn't going to be a home birth or anything, but I did want to do it unmedicated. And so knowing that and knowing what I had learned and researched about inductions, typically speaking, not always, an induction usually probably means drugs are going to be involved, because the second you get Pitocin, the contractions are really severe.
Yeah.
So then you want the epidural. Excuse me. So that already was like, oh my gosh, we both feel like this isn't what we want. But we were both really holding on to the fact that I knew I was healthy and we felt like everything was fine.
Yeah.
So we kept writing that out. And, you know, the next few weeks, he's still measuring small. And so fast forward to, I think, the beginning of week 39, my doctor said, you know, it's time. We're going to need to get him out, because he made it sound like if E stayed in me, there would be potential of him not growing anymore, and he would grow more outside of my uterus. Placenta.
Yeah.
So induction was scheduled for the day before his due date. So I made it full term, and we went in 7:00 on, I think, Wednesday. And
you were at 40.
Yeah, 39 in 6 days. Yeah. So we went, the induction was scheduled for 7 p.m. So, you know, you get there like whatever time.
Yeah.
And I told y'all about Kathy.
Yeah.
Last episode? Kath.
Yeah.
She was my nurse that we started with and was with us the whole time. And Chase was wonderful throughout the whole process. And we immediately got there and he said, you know, if there's a room available with a tub in it, she would love to deliver in water. And like was immediately throwing out all these things that we had talked about and discussed. And, you know, we didn't know that you had to reserve those rooms.
Yeah.
But he was really vouching for me and trying to make this just the best experience that it could be for me, knowing that induction was not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so we get in the room and, you know, you get the monitor on and you're on the table and you're doing all this. And so in order for induction to start, you have to have Cytotec, the cervix
the
ripening
thing they put
thing.
in. Yeah.
So I started that and I had the shaky reaction like you did. And shaky is not the word to describe it.
Vibrating.
It's earthquake.
You're vibrating.
It's like everything in you is literally it's shaking. And so that started immediately. And Kathy looked at me and said, y'all get comfortable. You're going to be here a long time.
Yeah.
You know, try to get some sleep, whatever.
Yeah, and you're like, right.
Yeah, and about, I don't even think it was 30 minutes later, I look over at Chase and I was like, I'm having contractions. And he was like, okay. Like Chase is always on my side. He immediately, like there was no thought in his mind of like, well, Kathy said it would be a while, so there's no way. Yeah. He immediately was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like this is happening, I'm pretty sure. So Kathy comes back in and I tell her that, and I kid you not, she was like, okay, like for sure didn't believe me. And they're not quick enough or consistent enough that I'm needing to time yet, but they're definitely happening. And my doula had suggested, because she knew that I didn't want Pitocin or anything else.
Yeah.
And so she suggested a Foley bulb, which if I wish that I had like a visual of it. It's a bulb that I guess they expand. I don't know how it works, so I shouldn't try to explain. Do they stick it in you? They stick it in your uterus. I guess uterus. But that was the most painful. I'm not kidding. That was more painful, in my opinion, than birth.
Wow.
Because I mean, it literally was like he fisted up inside of. Well,
that's another thing that I forgot to mention. I got fisted 50 times by 50 different people. Mm-hmm. So everyone got a turn. Like everyone's friend got a turn to fist me. Like my husband at the end was like, "Does anyone want to buy her dinner? Because she's literally been fisted by 200 people." No one told, because I guess it's a teaching hospital. St. Thomas?
Oh. Or so, you just got that round or whatever.
Or maybe not. Maybe it's not a teaching hospital. I'm looking around. You guys are like, no, I got fisted by no less than 15 different people. And at one point, a doctor was like, can she just try to, I was like, fist me too? Sure. Why not? I'm already here.
Already happened
because people were like learning on my vagina.
Cool. So that made the experience even better.
Go on.
That's awesome. Yeah. So Foley bulb was entered. It was, I would dare to say, the most painful experience I've had in my life.
Oof.
But in my head, I'm like, okay, this is going to get things rolling. We're good to go. I'm like doing what my doula suggested, whatever. So it's probably about 8:30 now, and contractions are still happening. We're kind of getting into a rhythm, and it's probably about, at this point, I don't know about you, but labor went by really fast for me. Like,
Yeah, it was
an
like
hour
2
was a
days,
minute.
but yeah.
Like, truly, I would be in my zone, and I'd look up and an hour and a half has passed. I'm like, what in the world? Which I'm not complaining about. But so it's about 10 o'clock at this point, and I'm fully contracting, and my nurse runs in and, not calmly, flips on the lights and says, flip her over, flip her over. And so I'm on all fours, just doing what they tell me.
Yeah.
Very similar to what your experience was. I'm just doing what they told me. And in my head, I'm like, just do whatever they tell you. Just do whatever to keep Eli safe. So I'm on all fours, and 2 other nurses run in, and one of them says, we've got a baby down. We've got a baby down. Call the doctor. So they had lost his heart rate, and they proceed to literally fist me. And like, no complaints there. There's no time for like, we don't need lube. We don't need, like, just put it up there, move his head, do whatever you got to do. So they fist me, and I can feel them like trying to find his head to move his head around. And they do that a little bit longer, and I don't, there's no way of actually knowing how long it was because it was such a whirlwind, but they ended up moving it to a point where they could get his heart rate again. So they had me flip over to the other side. Yeah. And when they flipped me over to the other side, I was then facing Chase. And that was when, like we had just talked about with you, that was when I was like, because I was trying to be brave, and I didn't want E to feel my fear in this process. But when they flipped me over on my left side and I made eye contact with Chase, that was when I was like, oh my God, that was the scariest moment of my entire life. And because he just looked, he looked at, everything was gone in his face. Yeah. He was white.
When they do the flipping, when they lose the baby, and they flip you like it is.
Well, and having had this conversation with Chase since, he was like, I thought both of y'all were gone. Like, I thought this was it. And I could see that in his eyes. And so that was when my strength and my bravery just like plummeted, and I just like crashed and burned and started sobbing. And one of the nurses came up beside me and was like, honey, you gotta breathe. You gotta calm down for your baby. Your baby needs you to breathe right now. Yeah. And like, obviously that was enough for me to be like, okay, snap out of it. We're good.
Yeah.
And so I calmed myself down. Chase came over and just like smothered me in a hug, and we held each other for, probably 10 minutes and just both cried. And come to find out, my doctor wasn't there at the time because it wasn't his hours, but what the doctor that was on shift at that point came in and evaluated. It turns out that my Foley bulb had made me dilate from 1 centimeter to 6. Yeah. Which put E in shock, which is why all of that happened. So he pulled the Foley bulb out and was like, yeah, you're dilated. You're in active labor now. Things are good. And so is dilated the right word? Yeah. I'm having like a pregnancy brain moment, and that sounded wrong. Is. Okay. And so at that point, I know I'm in active labor. We felt fine. The Foley bulb was out, and I could tell that my body was doing what it needed to. Yeah. And so I get like in the zone. I like swear I entered an alternate universe when I was laboring. And so at this point, I'm on my left side, and Kathy comes back in and tells me to flip over on my right side. And I'm at the point, I'm not speaking at this point. I'm very much in the zone. Yeah. I was not talking to anybody.
Contractions are,
and so I'm just coaching myself through them. And so sorry. I get comfortable on my right side, and for the first time since being there, I could tell that Kathy was actually like, okay, she is like doing this. About to have a baby. And so she looked at Chase and she said, hey, I know y'all are using a doula. Isn't it time for her to get here? And so Chase was like, yeah, sure, I'll call her. So Molly, my doula, got there about a little before 4 a.m. When she gets there, I'm like, Chase is fanning me. I haven't spoken. Like, if he says anything, I'm like, please don't talk. I need to be in the zone. No music, no nothing. He's giving me water and feeding me. And Molly comes in and just immediately starts massaging me. And she can pick up on she's like, oof, we're here, you're close, whatever. So that's probably, I'm about 8 centimeters dilated. We keep at this point. And then right when I'm, I guess probably right at 10 centimeters, before that, this was, I think I said this in the last episode, Kathy leaned down beside me and goes, so are you sure you want to do this? Like I'd made it that far. And I was like, yep, pretty sure.
You're like, I'm doing it, bitch.
Yeah.
Back up.
Get out of here, Kath.
Come on, Cass.
Ugh, Kathy. So she said
Damn
that.
it.
I know. Come on, Kath. She said that.
You're like, there's a head in my vagina.
Right. Like, no, it's happening.
out.
I've made it this far. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. So
God.
Molly is very on track with I am. And at this point, she's telling me, like, you're at the end of the football game. Like, you're approaching the end zone. Yeah. Like, we are there. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing. I do remember the very humbling experience of feeling her wipe my butt. Like, because I could feel everything, right? And so I feel
because you didn't have the epidural. I kept thinking I was pooping, but Nick was like, "You're not." I kept being like, "Am I pooping?" He's like, "No." I'm
no,
like,
Molly.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because
I was like, because I could be right now. I was like, I could be pooping.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know. No, I knew.
Wouldn't know.
I knew.
You know, you're like, there's my butt.
I didn't know because of the poop. I knew from the swift wipe that she gave my butthole. Yeah. So I did do that. Confirmed that it does happen.
Yeah.
And then
how can you not poop if you're actually? I never pushed.
Oh, that's why you did.
They never had me push.
I don't know how you don't.
How can
I don't
you not
know how you don't
poop if you push?
I don't know. I don't know.
You have to have no poop inside.
Right. Well, or it just comes. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how it's possible not to. So my water breaks, and right after my water breaks, right before that, Molly whispered down at me, if you feel the urge to push. Like she was so in sync with where I was.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. And so my water breaks and Kathy was not Kathy said, I think she's getting close. I'll go get a doctor to get everything set up. And so it's just Molly and Chase in the room. They're on my left side. I'm laboring on my right. My water breaks. And as Chase is going, I'm sure Molly told him to like come over on my right side to, do whatever. So as Chase is coming from my left side and rounding the table, he's right here at the end of the table. E's head just goes boop and just like cannonballs out. Yeah. Like there was no crowning. Yeah. There was no warning. He just was like, "Sup, world?" Yeah. And Chase goes, "The baby." And Molly was like, "Go get a doctor, go get a nurse," because Molly wasn't, she didn't have gloves on, like she couldn't do it. And so Chase runs out the room and goes, the baby's here. And I said this last episode, but I'm literally just like, I'm chill at this point. Like
you're
the
like,
pain's
the head
gone.
came out. Yeah. I feel so good.
That's all that I knew I felt. And so I'm just like laying on my right side, like, oh, we did it. We are in euphoria state right now. And so the nurses run in and they were like, oh my God, because I didn't know that his head was being cut off by my vagina and was literally turning blue. Yeah. And so one of the nurses comes in, tells me to raise up my left leg. And she said, I need you to push one more time. And I pushed 2 more times and he was out. So I got to do it how I wanted, which is I don't ever take for granted. Yeah. Because that was traumatic. Oh, it was still incredibly traumatic. It was still
traumatic. That sounds really tough.
But he came out and it takes a second for them to take that first cry, which is really scary. Yeah. And that really messed with Chase. And so he's fine. They lay him on my chest and Chase came over and the first thing he said to me was, I'm so proud of you. And we all just like have our moment and everything. Yeah. And Kathy comes in and goes, well, I didn't think you'd do it. That was the first thing she said.
You're like, thanks, queen.
No, I don't think I responded to her because I'm like in like bliss.
Yeah, you don't care.
Yeah, so that was mine. Chase didn't know about afterbirth.
Oh, so tell me about afterbirth because I don't know what. Yeah. Did they just take that out with a C-section?
They probably.
So I guess they just took it out.
They push it out.
Push.
Yeah.
And it comes like it's the placenta, right?
You birth your placenta.
Does it hurt? The pushing probably hurts.
The pushing on my stomach hurt, but honestly, you're also like, I'm holding E, so I'm in such a like, like they're doing it, but you're not like, oh, can you be easy down there? Chase, I forgot to tell Chase about the afterbirth.
Oh, so he was like, what in the fuck?
Well, so he's over across the room, he's getting weighed and doing all of that. And he says he looks over and he was like, it's the most blood I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And all I can see are your legs laying up and a hole in your body and there's blood coming out.
Yeah.
And so he said he looked over at Molly and was like, is she dead? Like, I don't know. And Molly was like, it's her placenta. It's fine. Yeah. He's okay.
You think about, you guys, think about what men must think during this time. They must be so fucking like
flabbergasted.
Yes. Like blown away by my husband gets like a common cold and it is the end.
Yeah, it's called man flu.
It's the end.
It's called man flu.
So for like me to be cut open and you to be like laying there with your legs open, like having afterbirth come out, like, are you fucking kidding me?
I tore an inch, or not an inch. Oh, not an inch.
But you tore.
I tore 1 degree, first degree.
I think everyone tears.
Most people do, yeah.
Yeah. How could you not tear?
E also went. So yeah, there was no.
If I had, I just think about like how men better respect.
Oh, I think they do. I know that Chase does.
Yeah, but it's like, God damn. Those men that are like, that I've read about where it's like they're not attracted to their wives anymore after having a kid. Yeah, it's like, are you out of your fucking mind?
I don't understand how that's possible.
Like, your wife is a warrior. Mm-hmm. You should bow the fuck down.
No matter how she labored. And no matter how she delivered.
Bow the fuck down.
Yeah.
She is a warrior. That's sexy as shit.
Absolutely.
Anybody that feels like I read that Elvis wasn't attracted to Priscilla after she gave birth to
Really?
his kids. I don't know if that could be totally false, but I read that somewhere. And that blew my mind because I was like, hey, Priscilla, oh my God, the most beautiful woman alive. But also, she had your kid, like, and I've known men that I've talked to that have had women have their babies and have been like, after I saw that, I couldn't do it. And I've just looked at them like, fuck, don't fucking say that shit to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to agree with you.
Right.
You fucking piece of shit.
No, it's actually the single most incredible thing that I've ever done in my entire life.
Yes.
Period.
And also you can, once you do it, and this is not to say that I think women have to have kids because I fucking don't. Mm-hmm. You are just as much a woman if you don't have kids.
Agreed.
And you are just as much of a bad bitch if you don't have kids. Mm-hmm. But once you do, you can do anything.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And I think
because nothing's ever going to be so hard. Nothing's ever going to be that hard or that scary.
That's more of what there is. It's such a vulnerable, sacrificial.
Oh, yes.
Like, I will do, because you touched on this too, like in that moment of like when E's heart dropped and they lost him. I mean, I would have been like, if you needed to decapitate me right now, go for it. Like, make sure he's okay. Yeah. And that is the first time that I experienced that feeling.
That kind of,
because pregnancy, I don't think you fully are able to tap into that. No. But when you are about to meet your kid, you're laboring, you have all of those emotions going, you literally will do whatever it takes to make sure your baby gets there safely. And I think that's the first time of feeling like, lay me down and shoot me now. Like, do whatever you need to do.
I don't like, they really could have done anything to get her out safely. And I would have been like, yes, of course, I'll do it. Do it. Don't ask. Do it.
But that's what happens. You tap into that, and
it's the most
there.
badass thing you can ever do.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Birth stories. I'm about to have another birth story too.
I know. Oh my God. Should we cheers?
Let's cheers.
To the one that made us a mama.
Sweet baby.
Sweet babies.
Rock, rock, rock me, mama.